Hello everyone. So after so long, today we're gonna see the spectrum. Our topic of chemistry is gonna be spectrum. All right. So spectrum means bending or splitting of lights. All right. Bending. Yeah. So here we can say splitting of light. We're gonna see how this definition, this word match with this spectrum word. A spectrum is basically a singular verb, okay? And then we have the plural of a spectrum is a spectra. All right, a spectrum. All right, so now we're gonna look up the sources from where we can get the spectrum, mostly from the luminous objects. What are the luminous objects? Luminous objects which have their own light. For example, we have sun. Alright, sun के पास it has its own like electric sparks that majorly occurs while wires burning flame. Alright, can I ask you, does moon have its own light? Is moon luminous? Exactly not. Moon is not a luminous, it's a non-luminous object because it gets its light from sun. So इनके बीच में they'll create a ray, incident ray, incident ray, ठीक है? Then they'll pass their incident ray from a medium. Alright, now here the medium is of two types: transparent medium, alright, जिसके अंदर we usually see rainbows. Alright, the medium that we see, and we have translucent and opaque. Translucent means जिसमें से थोड़ी सी लाइट पास हो. Alright, so we usually use this medium to see the spectrums of elements and molecules. All right, now we're gonna take the example of the sun. All right, now for example, this is a sun. All right, we have placed a spectrum over here, prism. All right, transparent medium example is prism as well. Prism. All right, we have placed the prism और यहाँ पे incident ray जा रही है, ठीक है? So let me just evaluate more about this diagram. Let me just draw that. This is our sun. We have passed these rays of sun to this spectrum. Now this spectrum is creating three type of rays. All right, three type of rays: visible, invisible, and invisible. All right, invisible. So the visible rays that we can see are sun में से जो rays निकल रही हैं, the spectrum that created by the sun, वो it can be in the violet color, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and I really remember by this word. Let me just see. Yeah, that's red. All right, Vibgyor. So this green is the green color that is being produced by the spectrum of the sun. All right, that is neutral. These three are basic and these three are acidic. All right, now we're going to talk about the frequency of them. All right, so let me just tell you the concept that frequency is inversely proportional to lambda. Lambda means wavelength. So frequency is inversely proportional to wavelength, right? If the frequency is more, so that the wavelength is less. For example, we have the broader wavelength of red. We have the wavelength of red, that is 740 nanometers. So automatically the frequency of the red would be very low, alright, सबसे कम, because what do we say, wavelength को हम कहते हैं क्रफ एंड ट्रफ के बीच का distance, alright. This distance is known as wavelength, alright. So if the wavelength is more, so speed will be less, speed भी inversely आ जाएगी, speed less, wavelength, when the wavelength is more, speed is less, क्योंकि we have a longer wavelength, a broad wavelength, तो इसके अंदर speed कम होगी ना. It must have some heavy kind of wear material, तभी इसको चलने में थोड़ा time लगेगा, alright, as comparing to others. And if we talk about the less wavelength, so it is around about 400 less wavelength, and that less wavelength is of violet, that is 400 nanometer. So हमारे पास frequency would be automatically more, because as I told you कि frequency and the wavelength relation is inversely, एक चीज़ बढ़ेगी तो दूसरी चीज़ will be directly घटेगी, alright. Now let's just talk about, we have talked about the visible light, now visible spectrum. Now we're going to talk about the invisible, these two, invisible spectrum. अच्छा, यहाँ पे जो spectrum बनता है ना, that would be UV, and here it would be IR, that is infrared and UV rays, alright. Let's just discuss about the UV spectrum. So the wavelength of UV spectrum is round about 10 nanometers. ठीक है, उसके बाद जो मैं I'm gonna write the names of that spectrum जो UV में आते हैं, उसकी wavelength घटती जाएगी, alright. For example, X-rays, that have the wave that comes in UV rays, alright, that have the wavelength of 0.1 nanometer. I'm sorry, it's N. And then we have gamma rays that have the wavelength of 0.001 nanometers, and then we have cosmic rays that has the wavelength of 0.00 nanometers, alright. तो इनकी frequency, इनकी wavelength is very very low, so automatically the frequency would be high. Did you get that? Right. Now we're gonna see infrared की spectrum, alright. तो infrared के अंदर जो आती हैं, that is radio frequency, that's the name. Up like for example, you might have observed in the old era we usually use radio for listening to the music, alright. So this is that, and here we're gonna tell about the wavelength of that, 0.9, sorry, this is frequency, microwave that we are using in our daily life, in our home, that is present. So that has the frequency of 10 to the power 7 nanometers, and then so on, alright. Then we have the two types of spectrums, alright. हमने spectrum तो पढ़ लिया, that what is spectrum, what are the spectrum of sun. So now we're gonna see the types of the spectrums, alright. Types of the spectrum, there are total two types of spectrum, alright. We have total two types of spectrum, that is continuous and discontinuous, or you can say line spectrum, इसको भी line spectrum, alright. So continuous spectrum, what's that? By the word you can recognize that continuous spectrum is produced by transparent, you need to remember these, continuous spectrum is produced by transparent medium. ठीक है. Continuous spectrum means no separations. I'll tell you that by the diagram. No separations. Alright, it can be in the rain. ठीक है. But if we talk about the discontinuous spectrum, so that include translucent medium, right? And the translucent medium is only for what I told you, atoms and molecules. All right, so now we're gonna discuss deeply about this. All right, now I'm gonna take the example of Na. We are, the incident rays are being passing by Na. ठीक है. इंसिडेंट रेजेस गई, स्पेक्ट्रम पे टकराई. सो द स्पेक्ट्रम ऑफ द डिसकंटिन्यूस, दिस इज द टाइप ऑफ द डिसकंटिन्यूस स्पेक्ट्रम. ठीक है. वी नो द टोटल इंसिडेंट रेजेस आर 7 रेजेस. हमने सन के अंदर पढ़ा था. इफ नहीं भी पढ़ा था तो लेट मी टेल यू दैट इंसिडेंट रेजेस आर 7 रेज. बट हियर व्हेन वी पास दीज रेजेस थ्रू द स्पेक्ट्रम ऑफ Na की हमने रेजेस को पास करी तो वी गेट ओनली 4. So this is known as what? This is known as emission spectrum. Emission spectrum. ठीक है. Then here there is a coming for, I'm really sorry, we need 3 more to make it 7. Then what we did, हमने फिर से Na को पास करवाया स्पेक्ट्रम से. Then we got these 3. ठीक है. And this is now called as linear emission. Linear absorption, and this is known as absorption spectrum. All right, so can we say that the Na has produced emission spectrum and absorption spectrum? Yes, we can say, and we can also say that the discontinuous spectrum produces line emission spectrum and absorption or line absorption in spectrum. ठीक है. And only these 2 spectrum are being produced by elements, because we know that we have talked about the translucent medium. ठीक है. And translucent medium is only for molecules, atoms. So this spectrum will only made in element. You need to remember that. Alright. Due to the molecules, the spectrum will be band. Okay. Now here we have another point. Okay, spectrum जो होगा ना molecule का, that will be band kind of. This type of spectrum. Alright. Due to the molecule, the spectrum of the molecules will be this. But here this is a element. Na is a element. Element किसको कहते हैं? Same atom combine chemically. All right, that is an element. Element का क्या होगा? Line emission spectrum and absorption spectrum. But talking about the molecule, we have band spectrum. All right, I hope you got it. If you have any question, you can write down below. Goodbye.